Autumn, 1973. With the spectre of Bloody Sunday still haunting the collective consciousness, and the persistent bombings by the Irish Republican Army rattling English cities, peace seemed elusive. Additionally, 1973 saw economic challenges. This instability led to widespread strikes by miners, dock workers, and other laborers, adding strain to the government's efforts to maintain order. In such a climate of unrest, it's not surprising that certain events could slip through the cracks of public attention, relegated to obscurity by the passage of time. In the quaint neighbourhood of Old Swan, nestled in the heart of Liverpool, plans were underway for the construction of a new school to serve the community of St. Oswald's Parish. Contractors were ready to commence construction, but there was just one problem they had to fix first. Enter Father Patrick James McCartney, the then parish priest, who brought a chilling revelation to the attention of the construction foreman. But before we delve into that revelation, it's crucial to understand the eerie events that transpired in the Old Swan area over the preceding 2 years. What follows is an allegedly true account. In the winter of 1972, the Jones family of Old Swan experienced an unsettling phenomenon. A recurring, rhythmic thumping reminiscent of a heartbeat echoing from beneath their home. This eerie pulse intensified, causing distress to both the family and their pets. Despite investigations by the council, the source of the subterranean sound remained elusive, centered around a triangular area encompassing Broad Green Lane, St. Oswald Street, and Edge Lane Drive. Mysterious occurrences escalated, including spectral faces appearing on steamed-up windows, and a tea spill forming the likeness of a grinning skull before vanishing. The unsettling events culminated in the sudden passing of their elderly neighbor Gladys, who described terrifying encounters with ghostly figures before her demise. Additionally, a night watchman reported being pursued by a monk-like apparition near the Jones residence, adding to the unsettling atmosphere enveloping the neighborhood. And that leads us to the autumn of 1973. The aforementioned Father Patrick James McCartney informed the foreman that he'd been told about 6 or 7 unidentified graves on the site of the planned school construction. Because it is illegal to build on land containing human remains, these unmarked coffins containing bodies would have to be moved before work could begin. This seemed like a simple enough task that shouldn't delay the project too much. But what they didn't realize was that they would come across something much more extensive and macabre than they could have ever imagined. As the workmen exhumed the first bodies, it became apparent there were lots more coffins than anticipated. They continued digging and exhumed more and more coffins with decomposing corpses inside them. It seemed like they'd never reached the end of the mass grave they'd uncovered. Author Tom Sleeman stated the following in his book, Vampires of Great Britain. John MacDonald, one of the workers who excavated the graves, told me how, at one point during the gruesome excavation, a perfectly preserved young woman with reddish hair, dressed in a white garment, slid out of a damaged coffin and landed in the rain-soaked mud with a sickening thud. Within minutes, her pretty face and youthful body started to disintegrate as the atmosphere set in. When the rain worsened at one point, a young gravedigger found himself sinking into a quagmire with the bodies sliding out of their decaying coffins. The excavation pit became waterlogged, and the whole scene was reminiscent of a scene from the film Poltergeist, with buoyant coffins opening and rotting corpses floating in the water. Eventually, after an 18-month delay caused by countless bodies being discovered within an area of only 40 square yards, the total tally of unearthed bodies was 3,561. These corpses were piled 16 feet deep in some places, and they were allegedly buried in groups according to their age, which suggests they were buried at the same time. Now, you might assume that a mass grave in Liverpool would attract significant media attention. However, although news of the disturbing discovery did surface, upon arrival, journalists encountered an intimidating 10-foot-high fence with a locked gate, erected on orders from the Home Office. Furthermore, the government issued a D-notice, barring the press from publishing any stories or images related to the mass grave. Shortly after this censorship, the Home Office directed the cremation of all coffins and bodies, followed by the interment of remains at an undisclosed, unmarked location nearby. This effectively obliterated most traces of the mass grave, depriving investigators of crucial samples and post-mortems needed for identification. Despite mounting evidence, the government continues to disavow any connection or awareness of the mass grave. A government spokesperson allegedly went as far as suggesting that it was likely a fabrication concocted by sensationalists or imaginative locals. The few who knew of the mass grave began speculating about the origins of the bodies and the circumstances of their deaths. A post on the Red and White Cop forum from February 24, 2005, by a user going by the name Mudman, told of one theory held by some locals, which seemed to root in the paranormal realm. The public heard strange rumors which claimed many of the dead had holes in their chests, as if a stake had been driven into them, which suggested shades of vampirism. Years before the bodies were unearthed, the corpse of a man believed to have been a vampire was discovered near Breck Road with a huge stake driven through his breastplate. Mudman goes on to state that this man accused of vampirism was condemned as such for brutally killing his wife and drinking her blood. He was buried in a reinforced coffin in 1680 with a spike through his heart to prevent him from rising. However, most people didn't believe that the mass grave had anything to do with vampire slaying. One hypothesis suggested that the individuals were casualties of the Black Death, a devastating epidemic that swept through Europe, including Britain, during medieval times, and particularly afflicted Liverpool in the 17th century. However, this explanation seemed improbable, as victims of bubonic plague were typically interred without coffins, hastily covered with quicklime, and buried. Liverpool, like the rest of England, endured numerous outbreaks of various plagues during the Victorian era. Yet, if the bodies found in the Old Swan mass grave were victims of a disease such as cholera, why was there no official record of such a large-scale burial in the City Records office? Apparently, any files relating to the mysterious mass grave had been destroyed. Only one alleged photo of the initial discovery of the mass grave has survived. Given the absence of nameplates on the coffins, many speculated that the deceased must have perished before 1840. Why this specific date? Well, prior to 1840, burials were not required to be registered, and coffins were not mandated to bear identification. This absence of registration would account for the anonymity surrounding both the coffins and their occupants. According to author Tom Sleeman, mediums who delved into the strange case during the mid-1990s asserted encountering a strong, malevolent presence in the vicinity of the unearthed mass grave. One medium went further, sensing a history of sacrificial rituals dedicated to Satan, purportedly conducted by devil-worshipping monks centuries prior in Old Swan. Additionally, hints emerged of 3 other mass grave sites in Liverpool, forming a colossal cross oriented towards the west. While conventional Christian tradition aligns churches with the east, symbolizing the sunrise, the west holds significance for followers of Satan. Assuming this story is true, could the Old Swan mass grave be the grisly result of devil-worshipping monks conducting mass human sacrifices centuries ago? It seems too outlandish to be true, but with no clear answer, all theories, no matter how strange, should be considered. Ken Pye, a Liverpool local, has suggested that the bodies belong to Irish famine migrants who arrived in Liverpool during the mid-1840s. Starved and weakened, they likely fell victim to the epidemic diseases prevalent during the Victorian era. Considered mere peasants, it's possible that the authorities of the time simply buried them discreetly without bothering to record their identities or the details of their burial. To me, that seems like a plausible theory. While researching this topic, locating any media coverage of the mass grave in Liverpool proved challenging. The few sources I did uncover seemed to contradict each other in several different aspects. The earliest newspaper article I found dates back to September 11, 1981, in the Daily Post Merseyside edition, though only a portion of it appears to have survived. Another reference comes from the April 18, 1996 edition of the Star at Merseymount newspaper. The conflicting nature of these accounts makes it all the more difficult to ascertain the true origins of the Old Swan mass grave. The story presents a chilling array of inexplicable events and unsettling theories. The discovery of thousands of bodies beneath a seemingly ordinary construction site has unveiled a story steeped in mystery and darkness. From the eerie thumping heard by the Jones family to the disturbing accounts of ghost sightings and unexplainable phenomena, the events surrounding the Old Swan mass grave are truly macabre. The revelation of a mass grave, shrouded in secrecy by government censorship and lacking concrete explanation, only makes this haunting tale all the more intriguing. When we consider the various theories, from medieval plagues to devil-worshipping monks, none of them seem to fully explain the mystery. However, one thing is clear. The story of the Old Swan mass grave continues to captivate and unsettle those who dare to delve into its dark depths. And perhaps, in the absence of definitive answers, it will remain a haunting, unsolved mystery for generations to come.